is the unit that publishes all this data to begin with. They publish data by gender. They publish data by age. They need to be tasked with publishing the data by race, period, full stop. Figure it out. It's not complicated. Other people have done it. Just do it.
So there's a division at IRS that is sequestered from the enforcement division.
Yes.
And you would have them do it.
Yes.
And so, and they would figure it out in the same way that they figure out gender, which isn't necessarily on the IRS.
Thank
form.
you. Okay. Exactly.
Okay. I just wanted to.
No, you're brilliant. That's exactly right. They do gender. It's like there's nothing on the form about age. They do age. So they figure it out when they want to figure it out. This is, it just needs to be a directive, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Okay. And so, and then of course, like what would you do for the tax system? How would you change? Would it be wholesale changes to the tax system, or would there be like surgical changes to the tax system?
So I have two answers. If you were asking me if I was in charge, what would I do? It would be wholesale. I would get rid of the exclusions, the deductions, and the loopholes. I would tax income the same, whether it's from capital gains or whether it was from wages. I would only allow a deduction for what I call a living allowance, which was how much people need to live in their particular area. Any amount over that, you pay taxes at a progressive rate structure. Any amount less, the government gives you a check. It's like an expanded earned income tax credit. And then I would have a wealth credit where I would give a tax break to any American in a household with below median wealth. That is going to disproportionately benefit Black Americans, but not exclusively. So that's like my big picture fix. But if we're talking about... Would you
have a flip side on that too, on the wealth tax, a tax credit?
In my ideal tax system, I didn't go that far, but there's nothing wrong with the wealth tax at the high end.
Okay.
I think the wealth credit for the low end would have more of an impact right across the board. So that's why I went that way. Now, if we were doing one-offs, I would say tax income from stock the same way as income from wages. So President Biden has a proposal, if you have more than $1 million, which is going to impact 0.3% of American taxpayers. It's like, okay. So I'm not impressed with the $1 million cutoff.
Right.
When he has a $400,000 cutoff for all these other individual tax policies. So I think the $1 million cutoff, I'm sure wasn't an accident, but I would want to see it significantly lowered.
Just to be clear, the $400,000 deals with income from working, as opposed to the income that you get from having money that you parked somewhere.
That's right.
And put a bet down, basically.
Right. So a lot of the other individual tax proposals from President Biden, there's a cutoff. If you make $400,000 or less, you're not going to have to pay higher taxes. If you earn more than $400,000, your taxes will go up. So my argument is, well, then let's have that rule for capital gains. If your income is more than $400,000, you should pay the same rate of tax on your wage income as your capital gains income. But President Biden says over $1 million.
All right. Fair enough. And so let's talk about, so those are the key things that you would do. And to a certain extent, right, that's this is a back of the envelope thing because we don't have the data.
That's right.
To assess.
That's right.
Like where this is going to fall. So this is basically like,
based on my 25 years experience studying this, loopholes and exclusions benefit white Americans disproportionately. Right.
I think that, broadly speaking, that should be somewhat obvious because, it's the same dynamic as like a 529.
Right.
Presumably it's, race neutral, but if the only people who have, or the vast majority of people who have extra income to set aside to accrue with profits are white, then it is, you're basically saying like it's a race, and
that's right.
I'm just randomly picking who's going to be carrying a 200-pound anvil, right. And it just all happens that it's
it's all happen to be black, but people. Yeah,
right. But this is a race neutral decision making thing.
Right.
So all right, so let's talk about the SALT tax. I mean, this is just, it's stunning to me because we see such a political determination, like the grit that we want for every progressive policy that the Democrats to fight for, but they're focused on the SALT taxes. And I mean, when this, and the SALT is, well, explain to us what the SALT is, because
right.
When I first heard this, I was like, oh, well, that's actually bad because it's going to discourage, blue states from raising taxes. But then when you realize who's paying it, it's like, no.
Right. So it's the state and local taxes. If you itemize deductions, this only works if you itemize deductions. If you itemize deductions, you can get a deduction for your state income taxes, state and local income taxes. Well, what the Trump tax cuts did was say, or for your real property taxes and your state and local taxes, you're limited to only deducting $10,000. If you pay more than that, and if you live in a state like New York or California where the state taxes are high, you're going to pay more than that. You are denied a deduction in the excess of $10,000. So now the Democrats have taken over the House and the Senate, and they're talking about removing the cap, which means now everybody can take the deduction for state and local taxes. The problem is, remember I said based on the Trump tax cuts, only 1 in 10 Americans are itemizing? Yeah. The people who are itemizing are the highest income Americans. So this 10% are our highest income taxpayers. So removing the cap is going to benefit them. That's not something I would want to argue for. It's like, why aren't the Dems putting their energy elsewhere? I testified like a week ago.
Why.
Well, because their constituents want them, right? The constituents in New York and the constituents elsewhere.
The constituents with money, right? I mean, it's only
exactly.
It's the top 80% of the benefits go to something like the top 1% or 50% go to the top 1%.
It's a ridiculous, they call it an upside down subsidy. It is a ridiculous percentage, like almost all of it that goes to the highest income Americans. And it's hard to make a push that you want tax reform that's fairer for America and argue for the cap to be removed, right?
I mean, of course. I mean,
I think part of it is, I don't think they want to say like Trump had a good idea, right? There's a couple things that the 2017 Tax Act did that was like good. One of them was significantly increasing the standard deduction. That was long overdue, right? That was one of the really good things. That's why we only have like 10% of Americans itemizing, which I say is the time to get rid of all the rest of the itemized deductions, because only 1 in 10 Americans, and they're the highest income Americans, doesn't matter.
And so give me a sense of like, I'm just curious, like, okay, so can you put some numbers on here, like for the deduction? Like, I'm bad when it comes to these type of things. Like, if I have a house and it's $1 million house, and I get in my taxes, I live in Westchester, and
your taxes are high.
Real estate taxes are really high. Let's say they're, I don't know, $25,000 a year or something.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And there's a state income tax and there's a city income tax if you're in New York. You can only deduct 10,000 of that. So you are leaving a lot of money on the table with that.
But what does that mean? I mean, like, walk me through that. So, like, if I'm paying $25,000 tax there, and I'm paying a state income tax of, I don't know, it depends on what my income, but let's just say another, I don't know, $15,000.
Okay.
So, okay.
And local.
And local,
right?
And so
let's
like another
say 7.
7. Okay.
Okay.
So, we're talking like I'm $50,000 worth of tax.
Yes. Close to 50,000, and you could only deduct 10.
And so I can deduct 10. And so I'm responsible for paying taxes on $40,000 of that.
Right.
And my tax bill on that $40,000 is going to be, I don't know, let's just say the federal tax rate, like 30% or something.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a super high earner. I mean, so we're talking there for these small percentage of people. In that instance, we're talking about, I don't know, like I'm going to be paying, $12,000,
right.
$14,000 extra. Like,
right.
Seriously?
I know.
We have better place to, like, what am I going to do with that $14,000 anyways? Like, I have my horse ranch, in Westchester. Like, what am I going to do with that $12,000? I don't understand.
I don't
that
either.
Dynamic.
Let's put it this way. They're not sympathetic taxpayers. That's what I talk about in class. These people are not sympathetic taxpayers.
Right. And what's amazing is how motivated I am as a member of the New York delegation, aside from AOC and maybe one others.
Right.
I've got to get
done.
that. I've got to get that $14,000 going to fundamentally change their life when that tax savings in and of itself is half the median income of people. Like, how much they make, never mind what they pay in taxes.
Right. Agreed. It's, I don't know. I don't see it happening. We'll see, but I don't see it happening. I see there's a lot of talk, but let's put it this way. Removing the cap would give an argument to the Republicans about fairness. And I don't think that's what the Democrats want to be. But I'm not a politician, so what do I know?
Is there any other proposals that are floating around out there that you think are particularly good or bad?
I think raising the corporate tax rate is good because lowering it to 21%, which is what happened with the Trump tax cuts, was ridiculously low. I also think what they're trying to do in terms of getting a minimum international tax is critical. So, I think what's being done on the corporate side, especially with the international, I like that a lot.
This is an initiative by Janet Yellen to get like almost a Paris Accords for a minimum tax, so you don't have capital flight for people trying to escape minimum taxes.
Yes.
I would imagine people are going to want to do that, although it's also easy for me to imagine there's like one tiny country that's going to say, like, we're going to be the one-stop shop. We're going to be the one with all the P.O. boxes.
Right. And there are levers that the United States has to impose costs. So they'll say it, but they probably won't do it.
The book is The Whiteness of Wealth, how the tax system impoverishes Black Americans. Professor Dorothy Brown, thank you so much for your time today. Really fascinating, very enlightening, and very explicit. And so for folks who want to know how to respond to the idea of whether there is still systemic racism, there's literally 250 pages of examples in your book. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for us today. We will see you tomorrow. Is that not correct?
It's correct.
All right. We will see you on Friday.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. And for those of you who are sticking around, no fun half today, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies. We're doing a tech day, so we're doing a tech day.
Well, I mean, it's all for the greater good because we're going to do a tech day so that we can be back in studio. And,
right.
No more Zoom issues. Well, still probably.
No, we're going to have a whole new suite of tech issues.
Oh, right.
That's the way we do it around here. And I don't know, greater good, maybe narrow good.
Okay.
Better for the narrow good.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for you to tamper expectations, I guess.
Exactly. We got to manage expectations. But folks, we're going to be back tomorrow with an amazing show. We'll see you then.